Hello and welcome to Access Asia. Coming up, Amnesty International accuses Facebook of exacerbating human rights violations in Myanmar. It claims the social network proactively amplified anti-Rohingya content. India's hottest new travel destination is also the site of a deadly insurgency. More than 1.5 million people have visited the disputed territory of Kashmir this year. And we take a visit to the suburb of Yokohama, Japan. Nearly half the residents are retirees, but they're a model community staving off loneliness by keeping busy. Well, for some of us, social media may play an innocuous presence in our daily lives, but there are times it can have a deadly role. In a new report, Amnesty International claims that Facebook promoted violence against Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar back in 2017. That's when the country's military launched a deadly crackdown. Hundreds of thousands of Rohingya fled, but many were not lucky enough to escape. The UN later called it a textbook example of ethnic cleansing. For more, we can speak to the author of Amnesty's report, Pat De Bruyn. Pat, thank you for speaking to France 24. First of all, just want to ask you, in what way did Facebook actually exacerbate that situation in 2017?
Hi, William, and thank you for having me. In this investigation, we've been able to look deeply into the precise nature and extent of the role played by Facebook in the ethnic cleansing of the Rohingya in 2017. Although it's been widely acknowledged that the company played a prominent role in the atrocities that occurred, it's only now, with the benefit of newly available evidence, and most notably, internal Facebook documents which were disclosed by the whistleblower Frances Haugen, that show us shocking new evidence of the true extent of Facebook's core technologies and the role they played in amplifying anti-Rohingya hate speech and incitement to violence. This research has enabled us to reach far-reaching conclusions as to the company's responsibilities under international human rights law and standards than was previously possible.
Now, you mentioned this new evidence. How did you gather this information?
Much of this evidence has come via the Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen, who late last year disclosed a huge trove of internal documents to the US Congress and some media outlets. Now, we've been able to go through these documents with a fine-tooth comb and applied a rigorous human rights analysis. And we asked, what does this mean for Meta's contribution to real-world violence, and specifically applied it to the case of the Rohingya? Because Facebook has been quite successful, really, in telling a story whereby they were seen as an actor that was misused by the Myanmar military, that the company was basically a neutral platform in the context of this conflict. However, with the benefit of this new evidence, we can reach far-reaching conclusion as to the company's responsibilities for those harms. We now know that the core algorithms which power the Facebook platform, such as its recommendation and newsfeed features, have actively prioritized the most inflammatory and harmful content, including incitement to violence against the Rohingya.
Has Facebook or Meta responded to your report yet?
We've engaged with Meta throughout this process, and including by giving them an opportunity to respond to our findings. And while they have pointed to certain improvements they've made since 2017, they've declined to comment on many of our main allegations, citing the fact that they're involved in ongoing litigation. But our message here is clear. Meta's fundamental business practices and its business model have not changed. So while the company clearly has a responsibility to provide reparations to Rohingya survivors, it is also clear that the company still represents a clear danger to human rights and at-risk communities everywhere.
Pat, we've seen this sort of problem time and again with social media. How must big tech alter its model, and is there any way to enforce that?
Facebook has long proven itself either completely unwilling or incapable of addressing the root cause of its severe human rights impacts. And our message, based off of this research, is clear. It's time for governments to step in and rein in big tech. We need effective regulations that put human rights at their heart and prevent these harmful business practices which currently dominate across the big tech sector.
And Pat, your report focusing on 2017 in Myanmar, have there been any other instances of this elsewhere in the world since then?
The findings of this investigation make it clear that Meta owes a remedy and reparations to Rohingya survivors. But they also make it clear that Meta represents a clear and present danger to human rights in many contexts across the world. Already, we're seeing the role that these algorithms are playing in fueling hatred, discrimination, and ethnic tensions in contexts as diverse as Ethiopia, India, and many other locations. And our message is clear. We need to address the business model. We need effective regulation to rein in these harmful practices, or we may see a recurrence of these extreme harms again.
Pat, thank you very much for your time and sharing your findings with us. Pat de Bruin from Amnesty International. And if you'd like to learn more about the situation in Myanmar, you can see a documentary on our website by our reporter Cyril Payen. It's an exclusive report shot in underground pro-democracy resistance circles, an inside look at Myanmar's civil war with exiled dissidents, rebel military leaders, and deserters. India is seeing benefits from a big budget tourism campaign it launched last year to lure people to Kashmir. More than 1.6 million Indian travelers visited the disputed territory in the first 6 months of this year. There is stunning Himalayan scenery to be sure, but it's also the site of a deadly insurgency. It's what's called sometimes war or conflict tourism. Take a look.
It's India's hottest new holiday destination. Lured by the stunning Himalayan scenery and remote Hindu shrines, Indians have flocked to Kashmir this year, undeterred by the disputed territory's long-running insurgency or the heavy military presence.
Before arriving here, I'd heard a lot about the situation in Kashmir and about safety and security issues as well. But having come here, those concerns are gone. But I did notice a lot of armed security forces and felt there must be some kind of security concern.
I felt insecure a little bit because I heard much about the Kashmir or all about the violence basically. By the television, I came to know that the government is taking care of the Kashmir.
That's due to a concerted effort by India's government to entice Indian tourists back to Kashmir. Tourism is an integral part of the local economy, but nosedived after August 5, 2019, when the Indian government revoked the limited autonomy constitutionally guaranteed to the territory, imposing restrictions on people and shutting down the internet for months. Last year, though, authorities again began promoting the region to Indians, as the local government's tourism budget was quadrupled. The result was 4 times as many visitors to Kashmir in the first 6 months of this year compared to 2019.
The more tourists, the more jobs. We haven't seen this many tourists here in more than 2 years. COVID-19 restrictions also caused a lot of losses, but this year we did well.
Other locals, though, who didn't wish to go on the record, have more mixed feelings about the influx, seeing it as an attempt by New Delhi to tighten its hold on the region. It comes after the government also opened up land purchases and local jobs to Indians from outside Kashmir. The long-running separatist insurgency in the Muslim-majority valley has killed thousands of people over the last 3 decades. Unhappiness with Indian rule prevails in the territory, and clashes between separatists and troops still break out almost every week.
Well, a change of pace as we head to Japan. Almost half the residents in Wakabadai are retirees, but don't let that fool you. It may be their twilight years, but the sun has not set on their busy lives. Our team on the ground has more.
People in their 80s playing golf is a common sight in Wakabadai in the Yokohama suburbs. This 89-year-old man plays 3 times a week.
It's better than sitting in front of the TV. I get some exercise, it's good for my legs, and I walk more than 3 kilometers when I come here.
Half of Wakabadai's residents are retirees. Together, they ensure that they have all of the services they need to make the most of daily life. Social activities and communal meals help prevent loneliness. This woman came to live in Wakabadai after her husband died.
I used to live on the 2nd floor, and there was no lift. But here, all of the buildings have them. It's great. And I've made friends like her.
The neighborhood's older residents contribute to local life in unexpected ways. They even manage this daycare, where parents can come with their children for less than €1 a day.
It's easier and more fun being here with retirees than taking care of my 2 children at home. I'm alone with them there, so things can get a bit crazy.
This 69-year-old woman has been paid a small sum for helping out at the daycare for the past 8 years. She says it keeps her active.
It's something I wanted to do. I couldn't work when I was bringing up my children, but that's finished. They asked me if I wanted to help out, and I've been here from the start. I love children, so spending time with them gives me positive energy.
For the past 5 years, researchers have been studying the independent people of Wakabadai. And with good reason. The over 65s already make up 36% of the Japanese population.
Well, that's it for this week's edition of Access Asia. Thank you for joining us, and please stay tuned to France 24.
In 2021, the Burmese army brutally regained power after 10 years of democracy. Thousands of civilians were killed and imprisoned, the country itself cut off from the world. But resistance is growing. Dissidents in exile, rebel military leaders, deserters from the Burmese army in Karen territory or neighboring Thailand all share their fears and hopes for revenge in an exclusive report with clandestine networks.
I want to fight Burmese soldier. I want to kill.
Watch Reporters on France 24 and France24.com.